Hello, my name is Tamara Grant, and today I want to talk to you about non-suicidal self-harm. This has become a problem amongst our teens today, and as educators, it's important for us to know how to recognize the signs of a student who might be in distress, and also to know how to respond to these types of situations when you encounter them. I'd like to clear up a misconception. Some people think that non-suicidal self-injury is an attempt to end one's life. In actuality, it is a negative coping mechanism that individuals use to calm down when they're feeling emotionally overstressed. An expert defines it as, quote, the deliberate, direct, self-inflicted destruction of body tissue, resulting in immediate tissue damage for purposes not socially sanctioned and without suicidal intent, end quote. This is yet another reason why we must do our due diligence with providing early interventions and getting students the help that they need. Teachers are at the very forefront of this process, so they play a very important role because they're the ones who have access to the students on a daily basis, and they are the ones who will be able to tell if something is wrong. Non-suicidal self-injury, or NSSI, is a major concern more than ever now because of its prevalence in young adults and adolescents. Experts say that NSSI is a major mental and physical health concern. The CDC reports that these behaviors are recurring in nature and that there are between 13 and 25% of high schoolers who were surveyed that have a history of self-harming. Middle schoolers are at the age to where this practice begins, so their prevalence rate is going to be a bit higher. Estimates will vary based on populations being studied and the approach used to gather the data. The bar graph shows the results from studies, which found that the prevalence of NSSI among young adults and adolescents occurs at a rate of 18%, where the girls are twice as likely to perform NSSI at a rate of 23.8% as compared to boys, who are likely to perform it at a rate of 11.3%. Some experiment with it once or twice and then stop, but others suffer from it chronically into adulthood. International case studies name NSSI as a global phenomenon and a social contagion. Self-harming has not been definitively linked to a particular socioeconomic status or race, and there is no particular profile that those who self-harm fit into. However, it is widely agreed that it is more visible in females than it is in males, and that bisexual and homosexual individuals are at a higher risk for suffering from NSSI than their heterosexual counterparts. Now let's talk about some primary methods that are used by individuals who self-harm. There's cutting with knives or blades. They may be using matches or cigarettes to burn themselves. Also, you might see them hair pulling or head banging. Additionally, there may be repeatedly punching of themselves or other hard surfaces, or even embedding objects underneath their skin. And that's not all. Mueller states that you can add carving symbols or words into arms, legs, or other body parts, biting themselves until blood is drawn or a mark is left, as well as pinching and scratching themselves with their fingernails until the wound bleeds. And there are numerous other ways to self-harm that I didn't mention. Now let's talk about some key indicators of NSSI. Mueller, an expert, says that we should always be aware of a student's normal behavior or if they seem to be acting abnormally, because this could indicate a sense of heightened anxiety, which is one of the indicators of NSSI. You may also notice that a student is frequently bandaged, or that they may have bruised or bloody knuckles. These are things that we want to look for. Additionally, there's repeated picking at scabs that they won't let heal, or if you notice fresh and unusually straight cuts on the arm or legs. I have an example of how important it can be to pay attention to students and some of the signs and indicators that we were speaking about earlier. So as my time as a teacher, I would regularly do hall duty, and I would always notice a student who would wear a long sleeve black jacket, even in the hotter months. And so I found that strange. And eventually I had begun to speak to her and befriend her and build a rapport with her. And so she started coming by my classroom in between her classes, and we would talk, and I would give her snacks and things of that nature. So eventually, once she became comfortable with me a few weeks later, she opened up in conversation and revealed to me how she had been cutting herself. So needless to say, I referred her to the counselors, and I hopefully was able to get her the help that she needed. So again, it is very important to pay attention to what is going on around you with the students so that you can step in with some early interventions and help the students. So let's reflect back on your role and how you can help in the situation. First, you want to educate yourself as much as you can about self-harm and self-injury. And then you want to be aware of those signs and indicators that you may see your student exhibiting. Next, you want to show empathy and calm concern, and also assess the child for any immediate physical danger, because if you see any marks on them, you want to be sure that those aren't life-threatening. And lastly, just engage the student with some respectfully curious questions so that they know you care. Teachers are in a unique position to notice these types of indicators maybe a little more quickly than others due to the amount of time that students spend at school. So if you ever were to observe any of the indicators that we just spoke about, it's important that you show concern by asking curiously respectful questions of the student without prying too much. Because if a student thinks that they're being pressured into answering questions and talking about something, then more than likely they will become reluctant to share the information. So it's very important that you trust your instincts, and it's a good idea to check back in with the student periodically as well. It is important to respond in a trauma-informed manner. Of course, it may be more natural to react to seeing self-injuries on a student in a more highly emotional way. However, experts are against reacting in that manner. In fact, they say do something different. Quote, "It is recommended that responses to NSSI convey a low-key, dispassionate demeanor, as emotion-laden reactions may leave the student feeling embarrassed and apprehensive about seeking help in the future. Professionals working with these youth are therefore strongly advised not to overreact or underreact to a student's NSSI," end quote. So it's just important to show empathy, and we want to focus on how we can fix the underlying causes rather than how we fix the individual. During my 18 years of teaching, it's been my experience to see students sit back and suffer in silence through emotional turmoil. And even though they may turn down your offer to help initially, you can tell that they really do want you to come and see about their concerns. So I mentioned this to say that even if they don't want to talk now, they will talk later. And once they do open up, you'll be able to see just how much they wanted someone to come in and see about them and check on them, and that they will be grateful for your help. So I said all that because I think that we should never give up on our students. Now, if you feel as though you've encountered a situation where the student is self-harming, there are some things that you will need to do to respond to the situation. So research has shown that there are some steps that you need to take. And first, you need to make sure you're adhering to your district's policies and procedures. And they may vary from district to district. But your first and foremost responsibility would be to ensure that the child is safe from physical harm or danger, check out their wounds, and make sure that they don't need immediate medical care. And if they do, you must send them to the nurse. The next thing you want to do is contact the point person on your school's crisis management team. And this could consist of administrators, counselors, social workers, nurses, or whomever is on that crisis team. It's good to know who these people are. And after that, you leave it up to them to contact the student's parent. It's always a good practice to keep documentation of any encounters or incidents that occur with students. You'll want your documentation to reflect how you handled the situation, what safety measures you took, who you contacted, and definitely make sure that everything is kept confidential and only disclosed on a need-to-know basis. And in the end, definitely follow up with the point person just to check on the student's progress. Hopefully from this presentation, you feel adequately informed about NSSI, what it is, how to recognize the signs, and how to respond during and after the situation. Since policies do vary from district to district, I believe that it is a good idea to have ongoing training throughout the school year on NSSI so that everyone can be on the same page and stay abreast of their district's best practices and maybe be updated on any policies and procedures that may have changed. Remember, oftentimes, we are the only trusted adults that students will encounter and feel as though they can depend on. So it's really important for us to know how to advocate for them.